like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, heck, we're even on TikTok. We're excited to engage with you. We hope you'll join us moving forward.
Good morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. How's it going, Andrew? How are you doing?
Pretty good. It's rainy and miserable here. It's been you know what? I'm going to complain. I like to talk about weather. It affects me. It seems awfully rainy this year, and I'm poo-pooing a little bit about it. But
you're being targeted. You're being specifically targeted by the weather, I think.
Yeah. Well, yes. This is the thing, because everyone's able to change the climate so easily. They're actually targeting me. So we can't tell the weather 2 weeks out, but they can target me and send weather systems to me and attack me with weather systems.
That's just what's happening. It's that's the only logical solution.
Yes. We got a lot of fun stuff to just riff about, and some just also because critical thinking is one of the things we like to talk about, and also just kind of touch on some big themes. And I think before going into that too, we'll just give a good nod to GMG, which has been steamrolling right ahead. I think it's if I look it up right this second, it's probably close to $6.
$5.92 is what I've got it sitting at here. So
$5.92. Okay, so it's pulled back a little bit, but good day again for GMG. This people say, where could this go? Well, they've shown their batteries work. If they can get this plant, it's done, and they can start producing at big numbers and at scale, this thing has a lot of room to grow, which is bizarre for me because I'm in the IPO. So I've owned this thing and have done exceptionally well already, but I wouldn't dream of selling it because I have to wait for more guidance, more news, and there's certainly nothing negative on the horizon. So very interesting. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a couple months, but the last month in particular, I know October 15th, it was sitting at $2.30. We're sitting up, tickling close to $6
nice
now.
Chart.
It's been a fantastic run, a gorgeous chart. That's what we love to see. So, awesome for them. Really great run, and hopefully continuing on as well with all the incredible products that they roll out. Yeah,
and also I don't want to jinx myself, because even the best and nicest looking charts, sooner or later, there has to be a pullback. There has to. Sooner or later, there's a changing of the guard where one group goes, all right, I'm tapping out, I'm selling half my position, I'm moving this, and a new one comes in, whatever. But as long as this longer flow and frame is on the way up, I hate people at some point, someone will pick that time whenever it drops a bit and go, see, you're wrong, it's dropped. It's like, well, we know at some point it'll pull back at some point, but it's been doing strong and doing great, and we're very happy. And if you look at, say, Desert Mountain Energy, which I'm never afraid to talk about, it had a pullback on news and on expectations and whatnot, not being met. But I'm more than comfortable and confident in Desert Mountain as always. I personally have been, picking up more of it since it's down, as far as I believe and concerned, at a low, nice price point. And it might take it's going to take a little bit of time for them to have more news. I don't anticipate anything anytime soon. I could be wrong. But there's lots coming in the new year. So just wanted to kind of get those two out, because we're always, those are some of the main theme ones we like to talk about. Of course, NG Energy is another one, which is it's found its new kind of range, its tight little range. I will be speaking with them, I believe, on Wednesday. So I'll have a video out as soon as I can. So this is kind of before a lot of results and milestones are met. I believe it's the end of the month that they will have everything tied in, the pipelines, the plant done, on their way to production. It's going to be close. There's going to be lots of things being tied together by the end of the month, but I'm going to ask him about that. And then when we, I wanted the interview before, so we could just kind of nail down all the things that we're waiting for and the timeline. And then once we have the results, I think I can do a video myself and just kind of say, aha, here we have it. But I feel pretty confident. So.
No, it's a great one to feel confident about. You see a lot of energy stocks like NG Energy are moving really nicely right now anyways. So they're riding a bit on that momentum as well. But like you said, it seems like they've settled into kind of their new range, hovering right around that $2 range. So it's really exciting for them. And then we'll get to hear what the next steps are. I know they're talking about potentially finding some ways to actually sell the gas that's in their main pipeline that they have down there. So yeah, really exciting for them.
Yeah, no, there's lots going to come out from there. And as you said, energy is critical moving forward. And one of the things, with what do you call it, our COP26 thing going on, you always have to be very careful with whenever you have any kind of politician, because they're what do you call it? They're speaking on behalf of someone else. That's what the word means. It's a Greek word, and it means that you're the voice. You're like the actor for those from behind. And these people are no different. I mean, you should, if you want to know the climate change, what it's all about, I mean, you can go to the UN global agenda. They have it mapped out. And you might scratch your head and wonder, say, if we look at this, 14 million tons a day, that's what China and India, they're not going to quit coal. So here's an article on how they're not going to quit coal, even though we can't stop hearing enough about it over here. We barely even use coal over here. So they're just ramping it up. They're going to be ramping up. And just to be a pain in the ass, and to be a flip side of that argument is, you're almost better off having a place like India using coal, because they're at least not burning wood, because that creates even more of an environmental issue if you're literally still burning wood, which they are. Mm-hmm. So what you really want to have, and this is going to totally make people's heads spin, is you want them onto natural gas. You want them to be taking the next step towards cleaner and greener. But what is never discussed over in the West, you'll never see it in any Western media. It's just not going to happen. And this is it's mining specific, so you have to go search it out. When I say mainstream news, I mean the bot corporate, mainstream news. They're never going to talk about where does that energy come from in China and in India and the pollution levels, because that's not the narrative they want to push. I've done presentations in New York and whatnot, and I'll say, listen, even if all Canadians stop driving in their car, it would have almost zero impact. It has none. So a lot of it's virtue signaling. It's a lot of people, and great. Hey, if you feel like you're doing your part by not driving and riding a bike, great. More power to you. I don't mind. That's great. I'm not taking anything away from you. It's not relevant. It's certainly not statistically relevant or any use of data. But if you really cared, you want to look to see who are the major issues, where are the major problems, and then ask yourself, why is it that this UN group and World Economic Forum and all the groups that meet together, why aren't they putting more pressure? Why are they just saying, oh, go ahead, China and India, you can use as much coal as you like? Why is it that Alberta, you can't use Alberta oil and gas? We'll just have Quebec buy it from Saudi Arabia instead. You go, like, it's not that you're not using it. You're using it. You're just not buying it from some places rather than others, and then spinning your bot media to spin it as best you can. And this is the part that's frustrating for most people that actually do research on any of these topics that are in the mainstream news, that are completely misinformed and totally delusional to some extent. Once you spend any effort or time actually looking at the numbers and looking at the data and looking at the actual people doing research, you'll find your narrative falls apart from the mainstream news very, very rapidly. And I don't need to ask why. Why are they doing it? I don't care. I don't need to have a conspiracy theory as to why they are doing it. It doesn't matter to me. It's just, I just have to go look and easily stand by truth and numbers and data and go, I don't care why, because that avoids everyone going, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. I go, no, I'm just reporting exactly the data. You have to now go defend your position, which is absolutely ludicrous. So very interesting. It's one of these things that, it's critical in today's age, because we're seeing that people are simply just believing things without doing any effort or any work or any investigation to see if it's true or not. And unfortunately, a lot of them, they're getting it from the likes of comedians and talk show hosts. So it's either The View or Jimmy Kimmel or one of these, and they go, oh no, I'm up to date. I'm informed. You literally are finding comedians and actors to get your science data from. And it just, I scratch my head whenever I hear it, and we get to hear it a lot out here in Vancouver, of course. I'm like, well, who told you these thoughts that you have? Like, where are you getting this?
Did you develop that idea all by yourself?
Yes. What of the science told you that? Which part of the science did that? Anyways, understanding the meaning of words is very relevant, and you can see why there's some groups right now, and I'll do this hint and we'll leave it alone, why there's certain groups changing the definitions of words to fit either products or ideas now, and that's what authoritarian governments always do. They change the wording to mean, gravity now means anti-gravity, and you have to get used to that. So it's part to keep people confused, and it's in part to also just to change a narrative entirely. So very strange times, and we'll leave all that strangeness alone. But to us, to those who actually wanted to look deeper, it's clear that whether it's going to be, and I have to check on this, I think this year alone, China is slated to build 140 new nuclear power plants. Mm-hmm. So that gives a bit of a sense of, if you want to know who the people in the know are doing, don't look to the UN, go look to China. Yeah. If you want to know where the future is going, look to them. Don't listen to any of these people at the UN. Because I guarantee you, they could talk all day long. China's not going to move. They're not going to move anything to do anything the UN says them to do. There's zero. They don't have to. There's no need. There's no reason. So it's good if you're into mining. It's bad if you're into freedom. But if you're into, if you want to make a little bit of money, there's lots of great stories that we're following, and lots of great things going to happen in the energy and mining sector. Anyways, I'm going on too long. Austin, what do you got for me?
I got something, a little bit of a pivot, but it fits into the climate narrative, and it's going to make you laugh. So those are important things.
It's Monday. So, I need it.
It's Monday. It'll get the brain juices flowing. Queen's University in Belfast is going to solve the cow emissions problem. We know that cows are one of the biggest producers of carbon, methane, cow farts, big issue, big problem.
They hate the environment. Yes.
They've got a solution. Do you have any guess what it might be?
Oh, God, I've got so many great ones, but no, please just go ahead.
Okay. Well, there was this is unrelated. There was a minister in Northern Ireland that said something about how maybe we should make cows wear masks. That's actually not the route that they're going down, although I thought that was pretty funny. We're going to feed them seaweed, because Queen's University in Belfast has been doing some research on feeding cows. Now, it's a specific type of seaweed. Seaweed obviously grows all over the world. It's a specific type of seaweed that is native to Ireland, kind of Great Britain area, all around the Irish Sea and stuff like that. But they believe that in this kind of bid to slash these methane emissions, if you're feeding cows this seaweed, it reduces the amount of carbon that's emitted and methane
from their fart
in their farts by feeding them seaweed.
That is actually very interesting. So then I guess it's a matter of, can they replicate and the amount of this as either powder or whatever, the way they would, or synthesize it in some way to then put it into feed and what that would look like. But that's pretty cool, actually. That's interesting.
Yeah, and if you could mass farm it and then use it as an actual feed, or maybe mixing it in with what your normal kind of grazing for cattle would be. If you're, I don't know, driving around on the back of a tractor, throwing seaweed out on the actual pasture that they're normally grazing on, or how that would work. But they kind of figure it could reduce emissions by upwards of 30% by 2030 if they're moving in this direction. It's cool. An indigenous form of seaweed to the UK and Ireland, so it doesn't contain certain chemicals that maybe are like seaweed that grows right. If you went down to Cole Harbor and scooped some out of the water there in Vancouver, maybe might be different. But interesting solution that could have potential effects, and see where it goes. It's nice to see people actually looking into this sort of thing and trying to find solutions that will actually work, rather than just, well, we can't have any more cows.
Yes, no, that's excellent. That's great. I mean, that's I love finding these little interesting tidbits and stories that they're really cool, and it kind of reminds me of the types of companies out there in algae that can actually capture carbon right now as well. And of course, kind of small amounts compared to what you'd need to do, but still, it's a step in the right direction, and it shows that you can capture the carbon in algae type ponds and then synthesize and make that into a byproduct that's actually edible. Now I know there's companies doing that type of work. We can certainly send out to people if they're interested. Some of the companies that do, I don't follow them a lot, but it is just curious. But it also ties into, because we like to talk about fertilizer and whatnot. There was a good article on the BBC about, and once again, if we're going to talk about the world, you got to talk about China and the shenanigans they're up to. They sent over a ton of, or more than a ton, of fertilizer, and it's also seaweed type. So it's an interesting organic type of fertilizer to Sri Lanka, and they made a deal on this fertilizer. And as soon as the boat arrived, the Sri Lankan government tested it at the dock, said, no, this is toxic. Not only is it not good, whatever they sent, it's a biosecurity to our country. They've literally sent us toxic garbage and pollution. Now, let's be very careful what China gets up to. They are notorious for this type of stuff. Let's just put it that way. And I'll remind you of what the role of the Wuhan lab has played in the last coronavirus. But if you want to go through the last decades of coronavirus, where they happen to come from, this is interesting because, of course, the Chinese embassy is up in arms and demanding that they will take it. And unfortunately, a bit of the issue, if you read the article, it becomes quite interesting because you start to realize, oh dear, there's a massive debt obligation owed to China from Sri Lanka that they might have to take this just as like, listen, you're going to take it and like it. And one has to wonder, the level of things that are going on nowadays. It just shows how key fertilizer is in this world. Sri Lanka had every intent to move to a more organic type of farming. And now, if one wants to be completely conspiratorial, did they set it on purpose to destroy the crop? I don't know. But I'm going to put, without knowing too much, I would say I would teeter towards believing Sri Lankans a little bit more than I would the other. But it's interesting nonetheless. And it just kind of ties everything together. The good, the bad, the ugly, what's happening on the world stage, and and the critical need for food, and that's you're going to hear a lot more about that soon, and you'll see tons about food and fertilizer and food issues if you avoid the mainstream news. There's plenty of articles and outlets that and I don't mean some weird blog. I mean literally lots of data and research groups that talk about this that are just being ignored. And so anyways, interesting. It ties everything together, and it ties, the chat we had with Brian Ostroff from Ariane last Friday here. And I thought it was interesting over the weekend to come across that.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, just for a sheer numbers amount for people, if I'm doing my quick math, roughly works out to being, that was a 20,000 ton shipment of a 100,000 ton order that had been placed. That's about $10 million worth of fertilizer. That's not cheap. That's a large amount. That's kind of gives you the scope and the scale of how much fertilizer is going to be needed across the world right now. And to lose $10 million worth, however it was contaminated, however whatever the actual story is, there it will be what it'll be. But that's a huge hit for Sri Lanka in what they're going to be able to produce, and it's going to cause more issues and supply chain problems for them.
Well, also, I mean, this would be something like what Brian says, like you order it at the moment, like it's for this. We need the fertilizer because it's going in the ground. We're growing season starting. They're not booking 6 months in advance, hoping it arrives, and we need it. It's in the dock. So now our season, we've been pushed because we're not putting that on the ground. So it just shows how the system that we thought was in place, that everyone trusted so much, is that if there's a bad actor, or if one part of that whole chain now, because we've got 50 different middlemen in between to send one bolt that's made in Calgary is then sent to be processed in Mexico, to then shipped here, to then ship here, to finally go into product in Japan. These types of logistic nightmares that somehow save money, they don't make any sense anymore. So, and once one of those steps goes awry or goes wrong in a complex system, it's hard to determine what the outcome will be. And since we started talking about climate to some degree, that's why almost every climate model is wrong, because you're talking about a complex system and you don't know, especially when they're not taking into account the sun as a major form of an issue. What are your variables? And you don't know how much one small variable that you didn't even consider. And when you're talking about such a complex system, it doesn't take too long before people start to realize the truth of how difficult the situation is. compared to the politics or the mainstream news or the narrative, the stories about it. And I kind of want to just end on that too, to say, when people talk about the science or something, that it always reminds me they have no idea what they're talking about. Science is a model. There is no the science. Like there's the data. And whenever I hear people talk about, they never put to data. They never talk about numbers. They never talk about any of that stuff. And if they do, they can be misleading. And it's tough. You have to know what you're talking about. And unfortunately, most people haven't done any stats at all. But it's a model. So it's a model of investigation. Mm-hmm. So there is no the data or the science that proves to something being and that's that. It's always that you're questioning, and you should be questioning. An actual scientist continuously questions things and wonders, I wonder if it's this, I wonder if it's that, or I wonder if this had any kind of impact on that. Yeah. Once you start talking about, which is a term that I like to use, consensus science, that is one of the greatest oxymorons out there. There's no such thing. Just because you got a lot of people in one room to agree to something doesn't mean that it's true. Like that's silly. The consensus science of smoking in the 50s was that it was great for you. It helped open up your lungs and you could breathe better. So it's just a matter of who you paid. And
look how well that worked out.
Yeah, and look at that. I mean, and you can just say with Oxycontin that they're currently having lawsuits with. So when someone talks to you about the consensus, that's utterly meaningless. That's not what science is. Now, unfortunately, nowadays, that is what science is that you have to follow the consensus or you're not going to get funding. So it opens up a can of worms. If you're actually interested in any of these topics, you'll start to realize, oh dear, we are in quite a jam right now in the world with what is going on in every sector and in every way. The beliefs that people have are very strange, but they aren't, because if you're watching The View and Jimmy Kimmel and these type of shows, and you're thinking that you're an informed individual, oh boy, that's not good for society. So
definitely.
Anyways, a bit of too much of a rant for Monday.
That's okay. It's good to get the brain juices flowing.
It is. It's good. And that's the thing. More than just making money for people, we wanted to have something where it's like, listen, we want people to think critically and ask questions, be curious about things. And if something seems strange, like if someone starts to change definitions of words, you should be very alarmed. Like if big organizations say, I want this to mean this now, that should send up red signal, like just utter chaos. Because when they're doing that, something's being hidden, something's being pushed, there's some reason for it. And I'm always amazed that the people, like kind of that meme about Rage Against the Machine. It's basically, we live today with Rage with the Machine. All these people who think they're the resistance are literally their supporters are the major media, social media influencers, and big pharma. Who would have thought that all of these people, especially on the left, would be rooting for big pharma, and this is the amazing work they've done with propaganda. Anyways, enough. I better stop.
That's where, I'll wrap it up somewhere different. Just encouraging people, tune in on Wednesday. We're going to have something pretty special that we'll be doing every Wednesday. But starting this Wednesday, make sure you tune in, check it out. We're going to have some cool companies on. Andrew's going to be having some great conversations. I don't know if you want to give away anything else or if you want to save it all for Wednesday, but tune in Wednesday. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. Just tune in Wednesday. We'll leave it at that. And Wednesday, some interesting changes are coming, along with the whole market mindset, where this whole new approach. Things are heating up. Things are getting pretty exciting. And even whenever I have to rant a little bit, it's healthy. It's good. I want people to challenge. Hey, listen, if you totally disagree with me, send me in an email. Tell me why. Happy to have the conversation. I love that kind of stuff. This is how we get smarter. You challenge each other. Respectfully, you challenge each other, and that's how people grow. And if people are interested in the truth, that's always, you should always be able to question that. And once you can't question things and you're not allowed to search for the truth or the answer, then you know what kind of world you're living in. So anyways, we always encourage the truth. We always encourage engagement and dialogue. Thanks for being here, and have a great week, everyone. See you Wednesday.
Yep, absolutely. Take care, guys.